What's the most unfair thing you've ever seen? I took care of a woman who had and was in her end days. She was young, late 30s, and had 3 sons, ages 9, 11 and 18. Apparently she had only just been diagnosed earlier that year. Earlier in the year, when her husband got the news that he was on his way home to comfort her and was in a car accident. So these boys lost both their parents in the span of about 10 months. This woman not only found out she was dying, but then was loaded with the grief of his death and the uncertainty of her children's futures. All of us nurses had to rotate care of her, as no one could leave that room and not be in tears. We didn't want to add to the boys' grief. Life is Ed sometimes. When I was in grade school we had a final group assignment to design a community center, with my teacher promising a lobster dinner for the group that had the highest mark. I had a bit of a crush on my teacher and thought, hey, lobster dinner. My group busted their designing the hijinks after-school community center, calling a long list of businesses to determine membership fees, cost of construction. We got hung up on a lot looking for price of building materials, community outreach programs and a whole lot more. We even helped the special needs kid in our group write a jingle, and we got the highest mark. When it came time for our lobster dinner, my group stayed in the classroom during recess to enjoy the fruits of our labor. My teacher brings out our lobster, which was a loaf of bread with googly eyes and paper lobster claws stuck in the side. It was on that day I learned the true meaning of disappointment. Zero tolerance rules. A kid can literally get suspended if they do absolutely nothing in a fight they didn't start. I worked with a guy. He was the sort of colleague that got on with everyone and loved by everyone and made everyone laugh and generally brought the mood up whenever he entered the room. He got banned from driving, don't know why, didn't know him when it happened. Basically he just found out he was becoming a father, it was his 28th birthday and his driving ban was about to be lifted. So was all excited about life. On his birthday night he had run out of booze, so decided to go to the shop to buy more when a drunk driver in a stolen car ran into him and flung him in the air so far because he was going so fast and left the scene. He died on that spot. For someone so happy and jolly and always there to bring people up, to be wiped out just like that was just the hardest thing to take. TLDR, how an innocent lady spent 2 weeks in jail for having candy in her purse. And how it could have been a lot worse. My first year working at the DA's office, there was a lady who was arrested and charged with possession of CDs, meth. The arresting officer was the best guy we had. Real by the book kinda cop, which put a huge target on his back from the other cops who were less thorough. Anyway, the arrest was made following a routine traffic stop. The defendant gave the officer permission to search her vehicle. He found a small baggie with crystal shards in it. The field test came back positive and she was arrested and her car impounded. That was Friday after 5, so she sat in jail until the following Monday for her initial appearance. That morning, she sat with the other inmates and sobbed throughout the proceedings before her name was called. You might be surprised, but that is really rare. 99% of the time, PPL are pretty resigned or sometimes just annoyed after they've had time to calm down, sober up, and the reality of their situation sinks in. So when she gets called on by the judge, she gets really loud and is crying so hard, she kept interrupting the judge, who then threatened to remove her from court until she could control herself. Initial appearances are basically just to announce charges, set bail, and schedule the next court date, so there usually isn't cause for a defendant to say much, just state whether they understand their charges. When asked if she understood, she starts wailing that she didn't do anything, that it was just candy. And you can probably see where this is going. After we concluded, I contacted the lab to order a rush on the sample attached to her case. A week later, the results came back as negative for meth or any other CDs. It was cinnamon hard candy that had gotten busted up in the bag in her purse. The defendant, being unable to afford bail, sat in jail that whole time. Meanwhile, the officer came into our office in tears over what happened. He was convinced that someone in his department had tampered with his field kits, swapping them out for expired ones. Because he never had a kit long enough for it to expire. He worried that this was the perfect excuse the less scrupulous officers would have to pressure the chief of police to fire him over. And here's where things reached new heights of teeness. My supervisor decided the way to resolve the problem was to offer the lady a plea deal of the lesser charge for possession and manufacture of an imitation-controlled substance. He reasoned that if she couldn't even afford bail, she would not be able to pay an attorney and the public defender would encourage her to take the deal, not being a thorough kind of guy. Epilogue: I tried quietly talking several defense attorneys into resenting her, but none even called her while she was in jail. After 3 more days of futilely trying to help her, I secretly went to the judge with a copy of the lab ort. He ordered her immediate release without further comment. No charges were filed. And she never wound up suing everyone involved, though the defense attorneys I spoke with often threatened to do that when they wanted leverage on their other cases. I could have been fired for everything in this paragraph that I did, so it was a pretty big risk, but I feel like I stopped a storm of unholy proportions and helped out someone who had fallen through the S in the system. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel to see more similar content. Didn't see it, but an autistic kid, special needs, in my middle school was convicted of possession because these kids gave him. Guy comes into the MVA, BAC 0. 19 over twice the legal limit. Hit another car head on the other driver and her passenger, a young couple who had 2 kids at home. They were out on a date night, he did not have a scratch on him. Going to family court with my dad and losing even though my mother didn't even bother to show up. They also wouldn't let me testify. Fact is, she kicked me out at 16 but kept reviving child support. Court didn't want to hear it. People who get wrongfully convicted and spend many years in prison. Can you imagine that? Spending half of your life in prison for a you didn't commit. I couldn't convince my parents to take me on a day trip to a university 45 miles away that my school was offering for gifted students, but they sure drove us 5 hours across the state for my brother's 3-day basketball carnival. I auditioned for a co-star role in a musical our high school was doing. The drama and chorus teacher told me I was getting the role. Everyone I auditioned with told me I had the best performance that night. My drama teacher pulled me aside and basically begged me to join drama the next semester. When the role sheet was put out on front of the drama room the next week, I didn't get the role. I was put as an extra. Turned out the vice president of the drama club decided she wanted to play that role, so she got it. She didn't even try out. I told the drama teacher I wasn't going to waste days I could be working to attend rehearsals as an extra. Went and saw the show on opening day. I'm really not trying to be salty, but the girl couldn't act or sing for the life of her. Almost 4 years later and I still think that's the most unfair thing that's happened to me. I think I'll post a personal experience here, not sure if it really fits the type of answers you're looking for. Well, around 4 years ago I started getting bullied in school, which caused it to be harder for me to go to school. I was also scared to tell someone, so for a while I was skipping school on the days that I'd have to meet the bullies. One morning when my mom was asking about it, I finally broke into tears and told her. She told the school, and the absolute genius of a principal I had said that she'd do something about it. Well, she had the great idea of not doing anything to stop it. It became even more harder for me to go to school, and after another while, she had the genius idea of sending a ort to the S of our country. I was forcibly, literally, they were using force, removed from my home, and sent to live an hour drive away to this mental hospital type of place so they could find out what's wrong. Well, surprise surprise, I had nothing wrong in my head when I went into that place, and it was the bullying that caused it, like I had been saying all the time. Also, it took them a full year to realize that, and after I got out, I actually had something wrong in my head, like depression, trust issues and the like. After that there was another year of them trying to make me go to my original school, but surprise surprise, being in depression and not valuing yourself kinda makes you just unmotivated to do anything. Nowadays I'm forced to live in a different place away from home, but here I'm at least treated like a human being and not an object that has something wrong with it. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel to see more similar content.